let's describe the cerebrum, your noodles. And that's your cerebrum. And you can see that looks like a walnut, right? Divided right in the middle. And we have two halves. Each of these halves are the cerebral hemispheres. Now, can you see the surface of the cerebrum? There is folded into a lot of little worms, and each of those worms are called, or ridges, are called gyri. So this is one gyri, another gyri, this is one gyri, two gyrus, one gyri, yeah? No, one gyrus, two gyri. Always get confused with the plural, singular in whatever language is that one. I think it's Latin. What a professor, right? Now, the in between that sulcus, can you see these lines, right? These lines, I'm gonna put it in another color so you can see it better. Okay, see these lines in between the sulcus. These lines are, in between the gyrus. These lines are sulcus. This is one sulcus, see, another sulcus, several sulci. Sulci is the plural, okay? So those grooves separating gyrus are sulcus. Now, if you find a sulcus that is way deeper than those, so now we're gonna call it a fissure. And a fissure, this is one example of the fissure. Oh, I have labeled that. The longitudinal fissure that separates both the right and the left cerebral hemispheres. That's the longitudinal fissure. Now, let's see how, and we know that already, just to remind you, how is the gray and the white matter organized in the cerebrum. Now you're gonna forget about these scribble scrabbles because I don't know how to delete them. So, the gray matter on your cerebrum is located only on the surface. Well, not only, but part of it, most of it, is located on the surface of the cerebrum. And this thin layer of gray matter creates the cerebral cortex. So the cerebral cortex, whenever we talk about it, and we're going to talk in the next slide to divide it into lobes, the cerebral cortex is only the surface. This is less than a centimeter. It's 1-2 millimeters maybe thick, okay? But the gyrus multiply this surface of the cerebrum. Now, there's another part where we're going to find gray matter, and it are these islands of gray matter that we have here, deeper, okay, floating in white matter, which is this lighter area, okay? So those are gray matter. Let's get the blue to show you the white matter. The white matter are all of these. Can I interrupt this for a little while? Remember that on the gray matter, just because I want to repeat things and over again, remember that in the gray matter, we have the cell bodies of the neurons with the dendrites and maybe some short unmyelinated axons. There's no myelinated axons in the gray matter. And another reminder is that here groups of cell bodies forming gray matter on the brain forms, well, in the entire central nervous system, form nuclei, not ganglia, like in the peripheral. Okay, now let's describe the blue, the white matter. So the white matter are all of these fibers that you can see, okay, all of this lighter area in between the gray matter. And we have three different fibers composing the white matter. Remember, these are axons, only axons, myelinated axons. So we have one association areas, and they are found only linking several areas within one cerebral hemisphere. Let's say this nucleus with this one, this area with this one. Those are the association areas. Then we have the projection areas. And the projection areas, a different color, please. Okay, the projection areas are going to link other gray matter areas of the cerebrum with another structures of the brain, not the cerebrum, other structures of the brain. So you can link this part of the cerebrum with the pons, with the cerebellum, with the diencephalon, thalamus, etc. And last but not least, we have the commissural fibers, which are, let's put it in what, red? Well, we cannot even see it in here. Commissural fibers that links two hemispheres, right and left. By the way, I have a picture, beautiful picture in here. So, and they form this structure that is called the corpus callosum. There, as you can see, as my yellow line, it lies right in the middle or right at the level of the longitudinal fissure, and is connecting the right and the left cerebral hemispheres. Look at all of these axons, all of those myelinated white beautiful axons. Now, in here, we're going to describe the lobes, the organization of the cerebral cortex. So that thin layer of gray matter that is on the surface of the cerebrum is organized by different lobes. And this is going to be pretty easy for you because we already studied this on the skull when we were describing the bones of the skull. The lobes of the cerebrum receive the same names as the lobes, the bones of the skull. So in the anteriorly located, we have the frontal lobe right here under the frontal bones. And the frontal bone, the frontal lobe begins here anteriorly, and the posterior boundary is this line, which is called, I'm going to put it here, the central sulcus. Remember, sulcus is just a groove separating two gyrus. So the central sulcus is the posterior boundary of the frontal lobe. Functions of the frontal lobe, as we said before, what makes who you are, your personality, your memories, your thinking, planning, decision making, emotions, plans, initiative. Important in here is where we're going to find our motor. I'm going to describe later our motor neurons, the motor neurons that is going to initiate the motor commands. Now, the next lobe is the parietal lobe. And the parietal lobe, the boundaries of this lobe is anteriorly the central sulcus, posteriorly we have the occipital, parietal. Oh, come on. My handwriting is ugly, but with this one is even worse. Okay, the occipital parietal lobe, and inferiorly the lateral sulcus. So this is the parietal lobe, what it deals with. The parietal lobe deals, or is the one where all the sensory information, all the sensory input coming from somatic organs arrives to. Okay, so in here we're going to find the neurons, okay, that sensory in here arrives the sensory information carried by sensory neurons or interneurons are just relaying the message. The thing is that in this area is where all the sensory information, somatic, touch, vibration, position, proprioception, all of that information arrives here in the parietal lobe. In here also is where the understanding of speech relies on, not the hearing. I can hear words, but to analyze and integrate and translate that into a meaning, to give those words a meaning, that occurs in the parietal and the temporal bone. Now, in the lobe, And the temporal lobe, well, first deals with hearing, well, is right over your ears, with smells, and here is recognition as well of faces, as well as objects and words, language comprehension, and memory. In here, what are the limits or the boundaries of this lobe? Again, posteriorly we have the occipital lobe. Superiorly is the parietal and the frontal lobe. And that's it. So superiorly we have the frontal and the parietal lobe, and posteriorly is the occipital lobe. Now, if you can introduce some uh, separators, and you can open through the lateral sulcus. Oh, by the way, I didn't put the name in here. Lateral sulcus is the one, this sulcus separating the frontal parietal from the temporal lobe. Now, if you can introduce into the lateral sulcus some separators to open up that sulcus, you're going to see deep down another lobe, which is the insula. I'll go there later. The insula deals with taste and the general visceral sensations. So motor outputs get out from the cerebrum at the frontal lobe. General somatic sensations arrive to the parietal lobe, and general visceral sensations arrive to the insula. One that I didn't mention is the occipital lobe that deals with sight, and I will describe how the pathway of vision in later chapters. So as you can see, I think that's it. We have described 5 lobes in the cerebrum, in the cerebral cortex, okay? So the frontal, the parietal, the occipital, the temporal, and the insula. And how many sulcus? 3 sulcus. The central sulcus separating the frontal from the parietal lobe, the parietal occipital sulcus between the parietal and occipital lobe, and the lateral sulcus between the temporal and the parietal and frontal lobe. Now, in the next video, I want just to describe 2 gyrus that are important to understand all of these, the pathway that the information takes here in on the brain, okay? So one of these gyrus is this one that belongs to the frontal lobe, and the other one is this one that belongs to the parietal lobe. So that's what's coming next. See you.